Welcome to our debut episode of the Hockey Writers Live. I am your host, Mark Scheig, and I am pleased to be joined by my co-host, our draft guru, the guy who put the draft guide together. That is Mr. Josh Bell. What's up, Josh?
Oh, not too much. Just living the hockey life. Got the cup awarded yesterday. We got draft and free agency coming up. How about you, Mark? How are you doing?
Uh, it's an exciting day for us, isn't it?
It is.
Being able to finally go live like this. We're launching into a new adventure. So it's not like we have anything to talk about in the hockey world right now. Slow news day.
Yeah. Seems like everybody's name's popping up today.
So much to talk about, but this is a first for us. As you might need to bear with us as we kind of get acclimated to our new surroundings here as we are going live. So if it goes well, give us all the credit. If it goes bad, make sure that you blame our producer, Dean Plunkett. So find him on Twitter, email him, do whatever you got to do, but he's the one to blame if this doesn't go right. So, bear with us as we try to figure out these bugs, but we're live and we plan to go live once a week and on Tuesdays, and sometimes it might vary. Like next Wednesday, we're planning on doing a show after the draft is done. So if you're into that sort of thing, we'd love to have you come join us. So how does that sound, seeing our pretty faces like this, Josh?
It sounds wonderful. I could look at us all day.
Faces made for radio, right? and just this little bit of introduction. That's what we're hoping to do here. We're going to talk some hockey. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about the big news stories from around the NHL. We're going to have some laughs. There's going to be some banter. We're going to bring some wonderful guests on, and it's all going to be live here on Facebook and on the YouTube channel. So make sure you like that Facebook page. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Hockey Writers, and that way you will not miss a thing. So just, Josh, I feel like it's a good place to start. There's plenty of people that already follow us, but I feel like that there's some that really still don't know what the Hockey Writers are. Just quickly, kind of go over what we're about.
Yeah, so we're a pretty large team. We've got 112 writers. We cover every team in the NHL. We cover the rumors. We cover the news. We cover the draft prospects. We've got writers in all the CHL leagues. We cover some Europe, everything. Women's hockey is a big one for us as well. If it's hockey, even ball hockey, we write about it. We've got lots.
Yeah, and it seems like that we're growing. I mean, I think we've had some of the best numbers we've ever had in August and in September, 2 months of the year where we normally don't get that kind of traffic. But yeah, hey, that's 2020, right?
Yeah, and through this whole pandemic, really, while other outlets were having to lay people off, we were gearing up and having a great run.
It's like people want to read about hockey when there's nothing to do. Crazy concept, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to take you into our world a little bit because I know if you follow the Hockey Writers on Twitter, you just see a constant stream of articles that just keep going and going and going. And that is from our 112 writers that are out there, offering analysis, offering opinion, offering news. And we are out there. Some of us are credentialed in the hockey world and do have the direct access like that. And this is a real good opportunity to be able to connect with you, the fan, to see, we are real people. We're not just people in the background like you might think, but we hope to bring a different element maybe that will help kind of pique your interest here. So starting tonight, we're going to do that. We're going to entertain you. We're going to have a lot of fun here. So Josh, let's just jump right into this.
Yeah. So I think the first big topic we have there just happened last night, right, Mark?
Oh, David, did something happen? Oh, wait, Lamar Jackson and Mahomes, right? Football. Oh, wait, we're talking hockey, right?
Yeah, you're watching the wrong game.
Darn it.
The Tampa Bay Lightning, Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
What a story. I mean, where were we last year at this time?
We were ready for season.
Getting ready for season, but Tampa Bay was still licking their wounds from being swept after being the President's Trophy champions. Yeah. And I just think the blueprint is out there where they had the core, they felt the disappointment, but at the same time, Julien BriseBois deserves all the credit in the world for sticking to his guns and realizing where the deficiencies was. And he just did not hesitate and he addressed them. How good were those acquisitions at the deadline of Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow, Josh?
Yeah, for sure. That line along with Gord was one of the best in the playoffs. It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy that like there were probably top 3 lines in this entire playoffs, and
Oh,
to
absolutely.
think that I know a lot of people say that this was Yzerman's team, he built this team, but Brisbois definitely made his imprint on it, and obviously it paid off. So I think he does. You're right. He does get a lot of credit.
And just to think too, in covering Columbus and really paying attention to that series, that they had the rematch. And if you recall game 1, 5 overtimes, that game just would not end. It started at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. By the time it was done, 9 o'clock at night, I was finally able to get a little bit of dinner. It was just one of the craziest. But that game, I really think, propelled the Lightning in the right direction, because it felt like the burden of the world was just lifted off their shoulders when Braden Point scored in the 5th overtime. They finally overcame, because it was the team that beat them last year.
Yep.
So imagine they lose that game. Where do you think their mindset could have been if it went the other way around?
I don't even know. I think they would just be absolutely crushed. I feel like they came in this year with a chip on their shoulder, right? So they were not going to let that happen again, and they kind of took over this playoff.
And what was crazy, game 2, Columbus won. So it was still a 1-1 series, even despite all that.
Yeah.
But just adversity. They finally were able to go over the hump without their captain, by the way.
I was just going to say. Yeah.
Just unbelievable just how they were able to rise up to the occasion. That Gaudreau, Coleman, and Gord line really showed well early in the playoffs and all throughout. Yeah. They were the best team in the bubble. And forget this asterisk stuff. They are the true champions, and no one can take that away from them.
Oh, definitely. I know a lot of people say like they're in the bubble, they don't have to travel, but you're also stuck in this bubble. They were there for what, 64 days, no family. They were trapped in there. I think that they had to play the round robin too, extra games. The asterisk is because it was a harder cup to win, I think.
And what, 200 minutes of overtime, something like that, or pretty darn close to it?
Yeah, I remember trying to figure that out in the conference final. It was already crazy. They had played an extra 4 games or something just with overtimes.
That's just insane.
Yeah.
But kudos to them. They did it. And I guess they're going to have a parade out on the boats or something like that, I thought I read.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see.
Little social distancing of the parades, but whatever you got to do.
Yep.
So let's turn our attention to the Conn Smythe discussion. I mean, if you were there and you had a vote, I mean, there was an 18-person panel. It was one of the closest votes that they've ever had.
Yep.
And Victor Hedman came out on top. So Josh Bell, I ask you, did they make the right decision?
My first instinct was to vote Braden Point. But then when I dug in a little bit more and looked at Hedman, it's kind of hard to argue against it. Like the 10 goals, all of his 10 goals came in the actual playoff, not in the round robin. Yeah. That's third to Brian Leetch and Paul Coffey of all time in one playoff. And then this is crazy. He played over 500 minutes and only had 10 goals against when he was on the ice. That's crazy. Braden Point, he had all the goals. He was right up there with Kucherov with points. But what Hedman did is just unreal.
Did he ever leave the ice? I literally feel like that he was out there all the time and he never left for the bench.
It seemed like it. And if you looked at Dallas in some of those late games, Klingberg, he seemed a little tired. And Hedman was out there for, like you said, pretty much every shift.
And that kind of goes to show, because I think Hedman made a change in the offseason to his routine, and it really came out here. I mean, I know Seth Jones got all the attention for the ungodly 65 minutes that he played in that 5 overtime game. Hedman was in the mid to upper 50s himself. Yep. I mean, for somebody as big as he is, it's so impressive. Take Hedman off Tampa Bay, I think Columbus has a real good chance of winning that series.
Yeah.
Take one of the other guys away, I still think that they have enough that they possibly go over the top. But you take Hedman away, their defense looks much different. I absolutely think that they made the right call with this.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you look at the Stars too, I think you got to give Khudobin some kudos.
Oh, absolutely.
He came in as the backup, and really he was arguably the best goalie in this playoffs. Vasilevsky obviously stood on his head too, especially in the final. It was kind of tilted towards him, but Khudobin got them there, and he won them those 2 games that they won in the final. So I think he deserves a nod too.
It's a nice little pay raise that Khudobin's going to get. And one of the real nice guys out there too. So it's great to see the stories where you get a chance like that. Bishop was hurt. He's now the number 1. And he did everything that he could possibly do. just fell a little bit short at the end, but heck of an effort by Qdoban, like you said.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let's, Josh, let's turn our attention here, as we're going to talk about some of the other big stories that are kind of going on here. And God, the cup is awarded. The season is actually over almost a year after it started.
Yeah.
But when are we going to see hockey again?
I know, this is crazy. I guess they're aiming for the next couple months, but it's going to be tough, and we have no idea how it's going to look. I know there was initially talk about a big bubble, but that's not going to happen again. The players aren't going to stick in the bubble for a year. But Frank Saravalli, TSN, mentioned the hybrid bubble. And I think that's pretty interesting. So he said there could be 4 to 6 bubbles, various cities around the NHL, and preferably where fans could be allowed in. So I think that's kind of interesting. So they're closely watching the NFL and how that's going.
Speaking of watching the NFL, how about the situation with the Titans and the Vikings with the first outbreak? And if the NHL is going to be watching that, but they got to be a little bit worried that, give the NFL credit that it's taken basically almost 4 weeks to finally get an outbreak like that, but it is outdoors and it happened. So how do you think the NHL is going to look at this situation?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you look at what they just did, though, right? They had over 33,000 tests and no positives. I honestly, I didn't think they were going to be able to do it. I thought we were going to see some right at the beginning, we did Premier League in Europe and the League Baseball, but they did it. So you got to give them some credit. So I'm sure they'll be going into this with safety in mind for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think there's going to be a rush. I know they announced the day, December, January, the hope that they get it off the ground and stuff like that. Just in my mind, though, there's just so many things that have to fall right in order for it to happen. I mean, especially if you want to get fans involved, you've got financial implications, you've got TV implications, you've got safety implications.
Yeah.
And just talking about the bubble, I mean, in the Saravalli piece, I believe he mentioned 2 weeks in a bubble, a week off to spend with your family, and then another 2 weeks playing games where it could work out that you play like 12 games or so per month. Right. And then they're going to keep Canada together in one bubble and then kind of arrange everything else within the States. So I just don't get the sense, based on what John Cooper said about, one of the better moments that we're going to have is the moment we check out of the bubble.
Yeah,
it really wears on you. And I think we take for granted everything that they went through, being essentially locked down, away from their family for such a long period of time. And just the feeling of relief knowing that it's finally all done and over with for them, that has to mean something.
Yeah, for sure. And if you think about what Tuukka Rask said when he was leaving the bubble, about how he felt like they were playing exhibition games. Yeah. Like that's going to weigh on them. Like if they won't, I don't think they'll be able to have fans in every stadium. Like in Canada right now, I know numbers are rising. So it's going to be something to keep an eye on. And like that's added stress too. Every time you go in the bubble, you'd have to have another COVID test and have to keep checking.
And in the States too, the numbers are rising, especially in the West, especially in the Northeast. I think the only region that it's kind of steady or even going down a little bit is kind of like where Ohio and sort of in that area, but everywhere here in Pennsylvania, it's definitely going up. The deaths are going up, the numbers are going up. I know from a football standpoint, the Steelers were supposed to actually meet with the governor here talking about bringing fans in. We'll kind of see where that goes. And I know the NHL is going to pay pretty close attention to it, but at some point, they're going to want to get fans in, like maybe a phased in approach, I think is what's going to ultimately happen when you start a season with no fans just to see how that goes. And then maybe you go to we'll allow 2,000 fans in an 18, 20,000 seat arena, and then maybe build it up to 5,000. But I don't see how you can do a phased in approach. And I really don't see how they're going to start on December 1st, unless a miracle happens in my mind. I think we better be prepared for a few months off here.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And at least for the NHL, it's not like junior hockey where they kind of need those fans in seats. The NHL can be okay without them. They've got the big sponsorship deals, the broadcasting deals that really feed the league, and they have revenue sharing, which is a big one. So one team does well, they all do well.
That's it.
So
Yeah. Now, the one last thing we'll talk about with the fans here. Do you feel, from a player standpoint, home teams love to feed off the energy? How
yeah.
much do you feel like that they missed that element? Maybe watching some of the games from the level. Do you think that was? I mean, the games are great. Don't get me wrong, but you think deep down the players just get the energy. Sometimes they need that energy.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And you hear players talk all the time about how the atmosphere in the arena gets them going. So through a playoff, that run, that's all in your head. That's all your teammates and your coach firing you up. There's none of that fan atmosphere driving you forward. And you saw it when Tambo had the cup. Normally they'll do the big lap around the rink, right?
Yeah.
But instead they kind of just at center ice did a little lap, and it was they
it.
kind of missed out on winning the cup in that way. Like they didn't get that they didn't get to share that with any fans.
Yeah.
So I think that for sure mattered big.
Yeah. And and there needs to be some normalcy that eventually comes back from this. The players want to get back to a normal stream. The fans want to get back, but I hope that everybody involved, I know they did a great job with the bubble, so I'm pretty confident that they're going to do a great job here, because there's going to be a return to play committee, kind of like what we saw with the bubble here, kind of going to return to play here. And I feel like that safety is going to be top. And talking to some of the players, the biggest thing that they wanted was safety. And they definitely felt that they got that here. And I think they're going to get it moving forward with any potential return to play. So I don't think there's going to be any rush to it. I think they want to do it the right way, because, if it gets messed up, it could turn into a really messy situation. That's the last thing anybody wants.
Yeah, for sure. And then one more thing that Sarah Valley mentioned in the article is the Olympics are going to start in 2021. They'll start July 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
So the NHL kind of has a timeline, because
they do.
NBC is the broadcast partner for the Olympics and the NHL. So we might end up seeing a shortened season too, especially if they do 12 games a month.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a sharp deadline. So
I feel like that's the way they got to go. I don't see how you can get a full 82 knowing that you have that hard deadline like that.
Yeah, and just trying to be as safe as possible.
Exactly.
It just makes sense.
Yep. Definitely makes sense. So Josh, let's kind of flip gears here, and again, it's just a slow news day, you just kind of start to go down the list here. We'll bring up some individual situations that have kind of cropped up in the news here, and let's kind of talk about them quickly. And I think of all the things that are out there right now, I think it would be wrong if we started with anybody other than Henrik Lundqvist. I mean, Darren Dreger was the one to first report the possibility, and then Rick Carpinello from The Athletic confirmed that Henrik Lundqvist will in fact be bought out on Wednesday. Your initial reaction, Josh Bell?
I mean, it makes sense. You got the two young guys stepping in, Georgiev and Shesterkin. So we kind of knew it was coming, right? You either have to trade Georgiev, who really you're not going to get the value because everybody knows you're stuck with three goalies, or you've got the aging Lundqvist, who really he's done all he can, I think, for the Rangers. He had a great legendary run with them, but I think it was time.
Yeah, and that's too bad too. I mean, you think of New York Rangers hockey over the last decade plus. Who's the first player you're going to think of?
Yeah.
You're going to think of Henrik Lundqvist, and you think about everything that he's been through. You think about all the battles he had to, even with Martin Brodeur over the time. The New York area was just so spoiled with the goaltending in that market, and just he's the king. Long live the king. But you're right. Sometimes you have to make a very tough decision, even if it's literally the guy that has poured everything out for you. And John Davidson and crew had to make that decision. And when you have a couple of goalies like that are ready to take that lead, and you have someone who's aging like that, you have to do that. And now you just kind of wonder, okay, what's next for him? Does he hang up the skates, or does he try to go and win a cup? Personally, I think he tries to go and win a cup. Joe Sakic should be calling. I imagine him on Colorado. Colorado's close.
Yeah.
Have him come in and maybe work with Grubauer, kind of as a 1-2. Maybe Washington if Braden Holtby's not coming back.
Yep.
Any other ideas of where he might end up if he continues on?
Yeah, I think any team that's kind of in the running for the cup, especially if they have a young goalie. But either way, I think if he signs a low deal for a contender, like say he takes the floor, or maybe just $1 million for 1 year, just to make another run. Doesn't have to play too much, maybe 20, 30 games,
Yep.
but just be on that team and help somebody else at the cup.
He wants to win that cup. And if he can mentor a young goalie, look at the buyout. So he's going to get $5.5 million out of this, which is going to save the Rangers $3 million in the cap, and he's going to get $1.5 million next year. So financially, he's fine.
Yeah.
He'd be willing to take a low deal like that. He just wants to win a cup if he decides to continue on. So it will be interesting to see. Personally, again, I think Colorado should be all over this situation. You have Grubauer, you have Pavel Francouz. You put a Lundqvist in there, I think you got a really good situation because you have a team that I really feel could win the cup next year.
Yeah, it's interesting. Or like you said in Washington, if you hand Samsonov the reins and then you put Lundqvist behind, that could be a nice little duo there.
That'll make for quite the revenge games throughout the year if that were to happen.
Yes, it would be entertaining.
And it would look really weird.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So how about when Bob McKenzie put that huge Twitter bomb out there from his semi-retirement and heard the speculation about Jack Eichel unconfirmed, possibly asking for a trade out of Buffalo? What did you think when you first heard that?
I honestly, I know these rumors have been going around for a while now. I just never thought he was going to go anywhere. He's right up there behind like the McDavids and the Matthews, or if not right there with them. And so it's going to take way too much to move him. And I don't think any team is going to bite on that. And so with the new GM, maybe they can finally build that team that will help finally get them back into the playoffs and make a run. And I never thought he was going anywhere.
So I'll ask you this as from a draft standpoint. If you're the Rangers, you hold the number 1 pick and you have a chance to trade that number 1 pick plus for Jack Eichel, would you do it?
It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to think about it, right? Yeah.
Especially the need.
Yeah. You put Eichel with Panarin. That's kind of scary.
Capo Caco, maybe if you put him on the right. Oh my gosh, there's so many possibilities there. But
yeah,
I'm with you. I don't really see a trade. But I think there's a bigger takeaway that we have to look at this. You don't normally get stuff like that kind of come out in the open where the agent comments on it. Even the general manager had a comment on it. But Buffalo Sabres better be on alert. How many years in a row have they missed the playoffs? I think 9.
Yeah, I don't even remember them being in the playoffs.
I do, and it was a long time ago when they were good. But quick story. So 2015 draft, the McDavid draft where he went second. I actually was at 716 in Buffalo. And I was there with all the Sabres fans the moment that they announced the Eichel pick. And you should have heard the loud roaring and the cheers from the Sabres fans because they knew they were getting a great player. Yeah. And would you think that was in 2015 and it's now getting toward the end of 2020. He has not sniffed the playoffs once.
Yeah.
And that was the number 2 pick and a guy that some even thought could go ahead of McDavid or could be as good as McDavid. Great player, but he's not McDavid, but still 5 years and counting. Sabres better be on notice because if this continues, they have a new GM. Obviously teams have now called about Eichel. Sabres better get their act together because if not, it actually could become reality. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I was looking at their cap friendly, and they don't really have a whole lot signed moving forward. Like they're really starting with kind of Eichel, and you got Cousins coming up, and there are a few young guys, Dahlin, Olofsson. So they're kind of starting there, and they're building right now, which is probably 5 years too late, but I guess better late than never.
And how many top 10 picks have they had in the last several years? I feel like it's been every year with them.
I feel like they always pick at 7. It's just, yeah.
It's kind of purgatory. Like you don't get the number 1 pick. I mean, Eichel's number 2, but it's, how do you really improve if you're constantly picking behind those that have access to the best players?
Yeah, and it's interesting. And even the other 2015 team there, Edmonton, like they really haven't made a whole lot of noise. Like obviously they've got McDavid and Draisaitl, but they haven't gone on a big run. So
what into the second round once, and that's basically been it.
Yep.
So it just goes to show you that it takes a team to win. And it also takes defense. And those are two areas of struggle for both of those teams. So until those get addressed, McDavid and Eichel might continue to struggle. And that is saying a lot for how good they are.
Yeah. And as we just saw, you need depth.
Mm-hmm.
You need that solid third line and fourth line. So,
yeah. So speaking of defense, though, couple names that I'll quickly throw at you here. Torrey Krug, apparently he turned down a 6-year deal at $6.5 million. Where do you think he goes?
He's interesting. I think I believe the Detroit's looking at him. So
I do.
That could be
the hometown boy there.
Yeah.
Interesting thing about Detroit, Josh. So clear rebuild.
Yep.
And when it comes to young players and young prospects, you have to field a competitive team. You have to have veterans there to help mentor them. They can't afford to have another season like they did last year. Like, or just everything that they turned out just bad. And then to boot, they don't win a lottery. So they get the number 4 pick instead of the number 1 pick. But they need to bring players like Krug in if the opportunity is there. They have the cap space. If Krug's turning down $6.5 million, he feels like he can get more in open market. And I feel like Detroit can meet that price. And he would be good as a starting point to, Mark Stahl is going to be there now. So at least there will be a little bit of a veteran presence to kind of insulate some of the young prospects that they have. And I mean, and you can comment on who's on the way in Detroit. There's some really good talent on the way.
There is. Yeah. And especially after this draft with, like you said, that 4th overall pick. But it's like, do you really think Krug is going to want to go to the Red Wings? I feel like he's what, 29. I think he's still going to want to go for a run, but the flat cap that could impact offers, right?
Yeah. And speaking of the flat cap, I mean, if you have an opportunity to secure yourself and let's say that the Red Wings come at him with 7 times 8 for what I'm just throwing that out there as an example. And no other teams are willing to go to that point. Gets a chance to go home. How could you say no to that?
Yeah, it's true, I guess.
Maybe Detroit gets to be good in a few years.
Yeah, maybe.
If they continue to build up, like if Zadina is the next big thing, Joe Veleno is the next big thing.
Yeah.
If whoever they take 4th, if these players start to come to fruition a little bit, they have a long way to go. But maybe a few years down the line, Krug might have a shot at the playoffs, even in Detroit. We'll see.
Yeah, it's possible. He might want to be part of helping that new young group forward, kind of like he was with Boston, right? So
that's it.
Possible.
Alex Pietrangelo, another defenseman.
Yeah.
What a tough situation that is. Go from winning a cup last year to now he feels like he's been blackballed. Toronto's been, I guess, in on him and some other teams.
Yeah.
Think he's done in St. Louis?
I think so, yeah. I think he's got to move on. They've got some young guys that they have to re-sign, and if not this year, then next year.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think he's probably hitting the market. And, yeah, like you said, the Leafs are interesting, and then the Golden Knights and the Panthers apparently have also been in talks. So that's for sure.
That's just tough because he wants to stay, and just if he feels like he's been blackballed like that, that's hard because he's their captain and everything, and we'll see where that one goes. So I'll go over a couple other quick ones with you here.
Yeah.
Patrick Laine, where do you think that this is all smoke and mirrors, that or is there actually something to this?
It seems like it's been going on since he was drafted, right? Mm-hmm. And he wants to play with Mark Scheifele, and they're just not putting him there, and he's maybe not top line material, but I think he could be if he was just a little bit more consistent. And
I'll tell you this much, Josh. Watch the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
Kekalainen loves him. He would have taken him second had he won that piece of the lottery. They need a scorer. Kekalainen's on record with me personally saying that ownership will back him if an opportunity comes up.
Yeah.
I think him being a Finnish GM and Laine being from Finland, there's a certain familiarity there. I'm going to tell you right now, do not discount this possibility. Whether they're able to get a deal together is another discussion.
Yeah.
I can promise you that if they have an opportunity here, they will look hard at this because they have a need on the left wing, especially a top scorer. Ever since Panarin left, they really haven't been able to replace him. Yeah. Laine would do that, potential 40 to 50 goal scorer, just watch for it. I think there could be something to this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I mentioned them already, but the Panthers, like
Yep.
they're a team that's kind of they're trying to make that extra push, right? They seem to be right on the bubble, and I think they've got the pieces in place. But if they could add somebody like Laine, somebody like Pietrangelo, if they miss out on one of them, they go for the other more.
Yep.
They could land one of the big names out there.
And it's amazing. I feel like teams are going to be able to have an opportunity of players that they normally wouldn't get a chance to have because of the pandemic, because of the flat cap. I think we just need to be prepared for how insane we say that every year, but we haven't had a situation like this before.
Yeah.
Stuff's going to go down. It's just a matter of time.
In the next week and a half.
Exactly.
With the draft and free agency. It's so exciting.
It's insane. So real quick, Jake Virtanen is another one who he apparently the Canucks aren't willing to pay 2 years, $3 million per, because that's how much he would probably get on open market. Why hasn't it worked out there for him?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Canucks just have guys that they value more, and they give them the minutes. And Virtanen just maybe isn't that depth guy. He needs the kind of the bigger minutes. So maybe he goes on a team that's in need of wingers. Even somebody like the Oilers, they need some wingers. Put him up there, and he could play a top 6 role on a different team, I think. So it's definitely an interesting one to watch.
He'd be top 6 in Columbus, and I absolutely think they should inquire of that if that situation is there, because they have a glut of defensemen and they need scoring. They need someone with upside. And I think that Virtanen fits the mold of somebody they would look at, especially for $3 million. So we'll see where that goes.
Yep, for sure.
Oliver Ekman-Larsson now. Apparently that was brought up tonight on Insider Trading, where the Oilers, the Bruins, and some other teams, seems like that if you're in Arizona, doesn't seem like there's anybody untouchable. Is Oliver Ekman-Larsson destined for the desert, or do you think he's going to go?
I think he's going to go too. With everything going on in Arizona over the past few months, it's not looking up, right? So I think he's probably a guy that might be looking for a change of scenery. And I just mentioned them, but the Oilers could be interesting. The Bruins, they're losing Chara.
Always interesting.
Probably losing Chara and Krug. He's a guy that definitely could be on the move soon.
Yeah, and the Coyotes have a lot of players that could easily go. I think Nick Schmaltz is somebody that even though he's got a long-term deal, Derek Stepan, I think, would be someone that's if you're in need of a center, only 1 year left. I would think that he would want out of that situation. Another one I think Columbus should go after, but I think Arizona should have their phone ready because a lot of teams are going to call.
Yeah, and then there's Taylor Hall.
Oh, gosh. Where do you who would make sense for Taylor Hall?
I don't know. Who has the first overall pick?
Oh yeah, right. I'll throw one more at you here.
Yep.
All right. So Tampa Bay, we got done talking about them. They won the cup. Now all of a sudden they've got to shed around $10 million worth of salary. If you were the GM, Josh, where do you go and how do you get rid of $10 million?
Yeah, you got to move a couple guys, right? So I think the first one you look at is probably Tyler Johnson.
Yeah. He's
been talked about forever, it seems. So it might be time. But another one you might have to look at is Sergachev.
Agreed.
He's going to be in need of a contract, and he's going to need quite a bit of a raise, but you've already got your core locked up, and you're going to kind of have to evaluate. So you got Cal Foot coming up, so maybe he can be the next Sergachev. So maybe he becomes expendable. So he's a name to watch for sure.
Gord's another one that you should watch in that. But the problem with Johnson and Gord, and that's why this gets real interesting, they have some no trade on their contracts. So Sergachev is somebody that could go. Anthony Cirelli, they have to re-sign him. So now, do we see an offer sheet?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, we could, especially for Cirelli. Yeah. I think there's a lot of teams that would be looking to do that actually, unless they think they can pull off a low end trade. But I guess the Lightning probably will be holding out for somebody to offer sheet them that compensation.
Alex Killorn's another one. There's so many ways that this could go. So stay tuned with this. They have to cut $10 million, and it might not even be a name that we're thinking about here. There's a lot of ways that it can be done. So it'll be really interesting to see what Julian Brisebois decides to do with this.
Yeah. for
And
sure.
Josh, on it, just we're gonna wrap it up here. Our first ever episode. I feel like the time just went by really quick.
Yeah, it did. It's almost like we like talking about hockey.
It's like we're passionate about hockey or something, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll close on just a light note here, and I think I'll try to do that every week with these. So I saw a tweet earlier tonight that in the bubble, apparently, Tim Hortons was all throughout the bubble because hockey players love their Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Apparently, 50,000 Tim Hortons cups of coffee, 20,000 ice caps, and 40,000 baked goods were consumed in the bubble. Your thoughts, please, Josh.
That's just very Canadian. That fits
Listen,
well with Canada.
it also fits down here because when I first saw that, I'm like, oh my God, jealous. I need to have that myself.
I mean, as a Canadian though, it's not my go-to, but as a sponsor, it makes sense.
Well, not everybody's perfect, Josh, but
I'll work on it.
yes. But seriously though, I just want to say the NHL did a fantastic job with everything with the bubble, the no COVID test, to make sure that everybody was safe. Even media coverage doing the Zoom. I know that was a challenge, and I got to be a part of a couple of those calls. Everything just worked out so well. They deserve all the credit in the world. They were able to crown a champion when a lot of people didn't think that it could happen. I know we criticized the league for a lot of things that they do, but they deserve full 100% kudos for the job that they did in making all this work.
100%. And of course, one last time, congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Absolutely.
On the 2020 Stanley Cup.
That's just it. And Josh, well done tonight. Great first show, and looking forward to seeing what comes next.
Yeah, me too, for sure. And for everyone watching, be sure to follow us on Facebook, The Hockey Writers. Follow us on Twitter, The Hockey Writers, and subscribe on YouTube. Once again, that's The Hockey Writers. And we'll be doing this every week. You can catch our videos, comment, throw us questions. We're always on Twitter. I'm at Joshua Bell 31.
And I'm at Mark Shag, and anything that you have on your mind, we'll be there to answer your questions. And we'll see you next week, as we're planning on getting together on Wednesday night next week, because we have the draft on Tuesday. So round 1 and rounds 2 through 7 are going to go on Wednesday. So we're hoping to get together. Myself, Josh, we might have 1 or 2 special guests with us to go over, and we'll have a draft recap here. So if you want to know how your team did, come join us on YouTube, come join us on Facebook. We'll be here to fill your need of the draft, and hopefully we'll tell you that your team got an A. So until next time, Josh, we will see you next week. Hope everybody has a great week. Stay safe, wash your hands, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.